that's all great. Fund all those businesses. But at the same time, don't forget teachers and police officers and firefighters and transit workers and healthcare workers and nursing home staff, because those are the people who I fund with the state budget. And you shouldn't make us choose between small businesses and large businesses and people who are on the front line doing the work day in and day out. I would even go a step further, and I would propose hazard pay for frontline workers. We all say, boy, they did a great job, the healthcare workers did a great job, the police, the heroes. Yes, they are. But you know what? Thanks is nice, but also recognition of their efforts and their sacrifice is also appropriate. They are the ones that are carrying us through this crisis. And this crisis is not over. And if you look at who they are and the equity and fairness of what has happened, I think any reasonable person would say we should right this wrong. 40% of the frontline workers are people of color. 45% in public transit, 57% of the building workers, 40% of the healthcare workers. People of color are also disproportionately represented in delivery services and child care services, right? The economy closed down. The economy did not close down. It closed down for those people who, frankly, have the luxury of staying at home. All those essential workers who had to get up every morning to put food on the shelves and go to the hospitals to provide health care under extraordinary circumstances, and the police officer who had to go out to keep you safe, and the firefighter who still had to go out and fight the fire. Those people worked, and they went out there and they exposed themselves to the virus. 2/3 of those frontline workers are women. 1/3 come from low-income households. So they've been doing this work, they've been stressed, they're going home to a household, often had 2 wage earners. One of them is now not working, they're living just on that one salary. And after all of that, we see the infection rate among African American and brown Americans higher proportionately than other groups. Why? Because they were out there exposing themselves. That's why. And you can talk about health disparities, et cetera. But I believe all the studies are going to wind up saying, yes, when you were home with your doors locked, dealing with cabin fever, they were out there dealing with the coronavirus. And that's why they are more infected. Pay them what they deserve. I would say hazard pay, give them a 50% bonus, and I would do that now. Yes, airlines, also frontline workers. Also, we have...
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's the Crypto Wonder from the Crypto Wonder podcast. I hope you're doing well and that this episode also finds you well. So, I'm not sure if I ever shared this with you all. I'm an essential worker for the state of New York. Of course, I say essential is because it's not that what I do is sort of like superior to any other occupation. This was a categorization that, was identified to my job title and many other occupations within the state of New York. The city as well, but specifically for the state, I represent the state government. And during the last 13 months, I highlight 13 months because of the COVID pandemic that struck the world and especially the United States, primarily New York, that was considered the epicenter of the crisis, of the health crisis. You know, our leaders, specifically the governor, required all essential workers to continue to perform our duties in a multitude of capacity. And as a state worker, we did not refuse. We didn't refuse to do our jobs. Okay? I could only speak for myself when I say, although I didn't personally refuse, I was terrified to go to work during the height, during the peak, during the beginning of this harrowing experience called the pandemic. I had to make very difficult decisions, choosing whether to put my life on the line by potentially contracting COVID and potentially infecting my family members, to keep a job so that I can provide as a man, so I could provide for my family, so I could pay bills, because their needs did not stop. My needs did not stop. The bills had to be paid. I had to think about all of that versus keeping safe, staying home, quarantine, quitting my job in the name of helping to reduce transmission of COVID, or contracting or contacting or being infected with COVID, whatever the terms are. You understand what I'm saying. If you don't, I mean staying home so that I don't have to catch COVID, and so that my family doesn't have to catch COVID, to remain home and protected, sequestered in the house, and have minimal contact with everyone outside. I had to make the decision, a very hard decision, to listen to the mandate, follow orders, and do my job. Along with my colleagues and every other essential worker in New York State, we had to do our jobs. Traveling to and from, meeting, having contact with people, direct contact with people in the middle of a pandemic, not knowing what this disease was about, where it was coming from. It was, and still is, an invisible enemy. In March, in April, in May, for the entire year 2020, into 2021. Here we are, still doing it. Haven't taken any vacation. Trying to do the best I can to meet my obligations and to perform my duties accordingly. Under the leadership of Governor Cuomo, the governor of New York State, throughout his daily press briefings, I remember him saying that the essential workers are heroes, are the real heroes. Because we listened and we stepped up and we rose to the occasion. You want to talk about a morality boost to hear him say that. It really strengthened, it gave me hope, right? It gave me some hope to combat this invisible enemy. And we knew we were doing this together. In addition to being identified as heroes, because you see, for me personally, I didn't do it to be a hero. I did it because it was the right, at the time, it was a 50-50. It was a balancing act. Whether I do it or not, it was the right thing to do. Ultimately, I did it. I didn't quit my job. But I decided, like many others have done, is to do our jobs, to face this head on, this invisible enemy. This was identified as wartime, frontline, these terms they used, essential workers, front lines, as if we were soldiers fighting in a war, watching consumers and clients and human beings that we help who are sick. We're getting sick as well. And some of us have even died fighting this war. In addition to him, or the identification of how great of a job that the workers in New York were doing and performing, he mentioned how he would completely support, if it was up to him, we should get 50% increase in our salaries by way of hazard pay. Why? Why would he say that? Why would he say that? It's because you can't put a price really on a life, on a human life. So the least he can do, because we were fighting a dangerous element, an entity that we could not see, the least form of and level of compensation that we could receive was an increase in pay. At least it's something, right? At least. The senator of New York, Chuck Schumer, echoed Governor Cuomo's sentiments and also called us heroes. Him and Pelosi band together and created some type of proposal for a Heroes Act to include a substantial amount of pay increase to award or to provide and to give to every worker who did not have the opportunity to just stay home. We always have a choice, though. Some of us could have exercised a certain level of judgment and said, no, we're not going. And then what? The city and the states and all the localities and municipalities would have been affected directly, would have been shut down. It would have been even more dire. Can you imagine? This is something that he said on TV, on television. This was documented. Fast forward till now, there are no talks of providing hazardous pay. There are no talks of having any type of increase, not even a raise. Forget about hazardous pay. Not even a raise in salary. But we're still deemed essential. We still have to perform our duties. We still have to meet the needs of our clients that we all serve in a multitude of capacities throughout the state. A cynical part of me didn't believe that any of this would have amounted to anything anyway, as far as him saying that we should receive 50% increase. 50%, he could have just been, overzealous in his statement, right? But we were dealing with a time that we were pushed beyond the limit to face death in its face. Two, three times as hard, because some of us, we face danger every day in our capacity and how we work. And on top of that, now we have to fight an enemy that we can't see. Have been affected, irreparable. There's been so much damage that's been done with this. It's studies are going to show in the future the impact that these last 12 months have had on everyone, including essential workers and their families and children and people in the community in general. And to hear 13 months later that there is no plans in any budget, in any state budget right now that includes augmenting salaries or adding, at least offer the essential workers what you said they deserved. May not be the amount, but something. Where's the respect? But again, we're expected to do our jobs. We're expected to show up, to rise again to the occasion. And it's taken so much out of so many of us. Like, I could only speak for myself and how I've been impacted by all of this. The bouts of worry, the bouts of anxiety, the bouts of depression, uncertainty. Take a shot in the arm and not know what's going to happen people are saying, yeah, there's no vaccine, there's no virus in the vaccines. You could take the vaccine, have redness and sore arms, and some people get sick. You take the second dose and people get sick. People are reacting different ways, allergic reactions, whatever. But you're still doing our jobs. Still. Now, there are cuts. They talk about how the federal government, with the American Rescue Plan, the latest stimulus package that President Biden passed into law last month or whenever it was, the third one within the last 13 months, provided New York State with $12.6 billion in aid. Cuomo said he needed $15 billion. See, this is the catch, because I paid attention. He said even if we get 12.6, there's still a deficit. There still will be cuts. Don't expect to get what you deserve. So why am I surprised to hear today that we're not going to get what we deserve? In fact, they want more. They want us to give back. I'm a union person. They want us to give back and still work. They're cutting 200 beds for mental health. This is not a situation where, when I talk about beds of mental health, I'm talking about facilities that house the most vulnerable members in New York State, the most vulnerable people in the community, the most vulnerable. When we hear incidents of people getting stabbed to death, getting pushed off a train platform, a subway station platform, onto the tracks, those are the clients we're talking about. Those are the people that we serve in my capacity. That's just me. I'm just talking for me right now. But essential workers run the gamut, not just mental health, but run the gamut. It girds my loins. Press briefings after press briefings after press briefings about New York being tough, New York being smart, united, and loving. Really? This is how you lovingly take care of your workforce that help make you shine? No, see, the workers, what people forget, we're expendable. We're easily replaceable. We're like pawns on a chessboard. And Governor Cuomo, what you're telling us is we do not deserve any respect. That's what you're telling us. We do not deserve to be acknowledged or really recognized. And your word, your integrity lacks. You don't stand by your word, so you have no integrity. That's what you're saying to me, Governor. That's what you're saying to me. And I find it disingenuous, completely disingenuous to this day. Cease all press briefings in the style that you had it, but because you're under multiple investigations, you're touring the state of New York. You're touring. You're on this New York State tour. This is what I call it, a tour. appearing in different places and having people rally behind you to speak about COVID and updates and how to reopen New York in a style where at the end of the press briefings, reporters can't ask you anything because you know what they're going to ask you. The waters or the seat is just too hot. So just like you don't want to be distracted, you claim that you don't want to be distracted by being asked questions about the nursing home deaths and the sexual allegations that at least 9 women have against you. You don't want to be distracted from that because you have to take care of New York and dealing with COVID, but you're disingenuous because the lifeblood that's allowing this city and this state to run, the people who comprise of your workforce to keep things running when you needed us the most, you've turned your back on us. You've turned your back. And I have absolutely no faith in anything you say and anything you're doing at this point. We've had to continue without hesitating, without complaining. We had to continue to work. We had to continue to do our jobs. There's no price that you can put on saving a life. There's no price that you can put on risking your life. But that's what we did. That's what we've been doing. That's what we continue to do. Things today are a lot different than they were 13 months ago, but it's not over. It's nowhere near over. You went on a campaign. You went on a book writing. You've written a book. Now supposedly we got paid millions of dollars for the book you wrote in the middle, not in the middle of the summer of 2020. You had all this time to do that, to embark in your literary endeavors. While members of my union, including me, had to do what we do, live off the same of what we receive every 2 weeks. Still do your job though. Doesn't matter the amount of money we get. We still did our job. No contract. Contract negotiations on pause because COVID. Everything on pause because COVID. Your goodwill and your praise of essential workers and your staff and the people of New York are on pause too, because your actions did not support what you said. That if it was up to you, we'd get 50% increase. I imagine that video no longer exists, but I know what I heard. And if I'm the only one who heard it and I may look strange, I'll wear it. I don't care. I know what I heard because I was living through this and I was watching these press briefings because we were looking for answers. We were looking for guidance amidst confusion and chaos. And you seemingly appeared to be the person that carried the beacon of light to provide hope. And all we can do was hang on every word that you said. So when I heard you say that, now I'm saying to myself, you got to be held to that. Right? That's the role you take as an elected person, right? You work on behalf of the people, right? With such stature comes great responsibility. It's not, I didn't say these things. You did in your position, Governor Cuomo. And now it's quiet. It's mum's the word. Mum's the word. We're talking about this is affecting nurses, doctors, social workers, counselors, teachers. Well, teachers had to be home. It was different back then, but I'm talking about even folks who work in hospitality or stores, cashiers, people who had to just keep their businesses open and patronize customers and provide food and whatever, transportation, public services, bus drivers, train conductors, any capacity you could think, cab drivers, like whatever capacity that, whatever role, police officers, firefighters, whatever role, EMT workers, whatever role that was deemed essential. And I'm missing a lot. This is just what's coming to my mind. Whatever role that was deemed essential had to perform, could not stay home. How about how about the fact that folks in my capacity, along with me, we had to do multiple roles, not just what we did, but work out of title as well. Working in capacities where we weren't even trained, placing ourselves at risk. I don't care about you calling us heroes. You could keep your title, you could keep your well wishes, you could keep your praise. They're worth nothing. They're worth nothing. Your words are akin to a trail of tears, a trail of woe and misery. That's what your words reflect and represent. Your words go to the floor. They hold absolutely no weight. That's what you've shown us. But it's all about image, it's all about prestige, it's all about posture, recognition, valor, glory for you at the expense of everyone else who's helping everything run and helping you shine. I'm not, I don't regret what I've done, but I don't regret what I've done. I do not regret the fact that I had to continue to do my job because it's my job. What I do regret was believing in you, Governor Cuomo. That's what I do regret. Because in many instances, you've been a hypocrite, your words have been contradictory, and hold absolutely no weight. You have no integrity. Because how can you look at us in the face and say in truth that we're heroes and not stand by your word and said what you were going to do to deliver, to make things all right, to make this right. With a leader like you, who really needs enemies?